Okay, so this is the first event for what I'm calling revived Berlin chapter of CMX Connect. CMX Connect for Berlin existed a couple of years ago, but I'm really not sure who the old hosts were. But it was dead for a little while, and then Jen and I decided to revive it. So we're super pumped. We're really looking forward to having some great events this upcoming year. So we'll do like in-person events and also online events, which is really cool because then everyone can join and we can have speakers from all over the globe like we have tonight. So you guys probably all know this, but just to give you a little background about CMX and Connect. So CMX calls itself the premier community for community professionals, and Connect are the local chapters all over the globe with events such as this one. So yeah, Jen and I are super excited for you guys to join us tonight and help us kick off the new Berlin chapter. And yeah, just a few things. So you guys can turn your camera on. This was just in the slide, so I'm not sure how this works, but if you want, you can turn your camera on, but I don't think we'll see you on stage. So yeah, you can try that. And then, yeah, just as a suggestion to try to close any distractions. And then there's a chat box. So there's the big one where you can chat with everyone. And then there's a Q&A part just at the top you can click on. And you can send any questions my way, and then we will answer them in the last couple minutes. And then just one last thing, in case you're wondering what Bevy is, because at some point I also wondered what exactly Bevy was. I saw the name around a lot on CMX. Bevy's actually the software company that built this platform that we're using. And Bevy is in the business of building and scaling in-person communities. So that's the connection to CMX. Okay, so without further ado, we'll get into the event itself. So we have 4 speakers that you guys can see right now on the screen. And I would love for you guys to do an introduction of yourselves. So I'll call out your name and you can just go ahead and say your name, where you're from, your job title, and how long you've been a community professional, and how long you've been consulting. So let's start out with Deb.
I knew you were going to start with B for some reason. I am a founder of a consulting business. I launched my consulting business in 2020. It's called Find Calm Here. Basically, I tried to launch an online paid community in 2020 during the pandemic, hosted over 30 virtual events, failed at launching a paid online community, but because people saw what I was doing, they said, Deb, can you help me? So that's basically how I got into the online community profession. And I've been bringing people together in person for quite a while. And that's where I started my Find Calm Here community is in person, then flipped to virtual. So I've been doing consulting since September of 2020. I've worked with people in all over the world, from a lot of people on the West Coast of US to Canada and the UK. And we have a community of community builders inside my community. It's called the Find Calm Here community. And I help people find calm in building online communities on Mighty Networks. So that's pretty much what I do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I have a feeling all of us are going to use the word community a million times. So I really look forward to that. It's hard to find like another adjective.
We can make a game out of it. Take a shot. Yeah. Every community word that we say.
Yeah, let's see how many times Yuri, who's our next person, can say community. So Yuri, go away. Go away. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And I will change word community and tell the word orange, not the community. So my name is Yuri. I'm a founder and orange leader of 4 Ukrainian oranges of experts for SEO, paid advertisements, marketing, and sales. So I've been in the orange world for 7 years already, and I collected all mistakes that orange managers only can imagine. So when the war started, thanks to David Spink, the founder of the CMX Orange, I became a consultant. Before that, I was trying to help our Ukrainian communities. and helping others worldwide to make their oranges thrive.
Awesome. Okay. And our next speaker, Ilker, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I don't know if I can good a stab as Yuri did on trying to substitute the word, but I can just say that I am a consultant since 2020, like Deb, and I manage, of course, the strategy pertaining to people who get together and engage. So let's try and see if I can substitute it in that way. But basically, I've been doing this. This feels like a contest now, like a TV show, where you're trying to, score points by your substituting words. But anyway, I've been doing this since 2020, off the back of an experience at Google where I was managing groups of developers, so to speak. And this all started actually about a decade ago when I first was introduced to the concept of volunteers and people around a certain ethos, certain energy at the London Olympic Games, of all places. So and I'm really happy and enthused that I am here in the presence of some great consultants, certainly whom I know very, very well. And it's great that you've invited me over to talk about consultancy and try to see if we can help some people turn into consultants, which we desperately need. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. A Connect host for Istanbul, correct?
That's correct, and I completely forgot about that as my brain was quite busy trying to substitute words. This is what happens, unfortunately. Being a male person, perhaps I can only concentrate to one thing at a time. But what I can say is I've been the host of CMX Connect Istanbul chapter for the last couple of years, and I have some amazing co-hosts, some of whom I might be in the audience today. And we're happy to support fellow Connect chapters, just like here.
Ilker, the extraordinaire.
Oh, last but not least.
Hey everyone. So I know many of you out here, but my name is Katie Wright, community manager over at Clary. We're a revenue intelligence platform, and going through all the fun growing pains of getting ready for launch. And I've also been doing some consulting for, I guess, a few months now. I don't know. Ilker probably knows better than I, because I think he was one of the first people I spoke with about getting into the biz. But I've got a few companies that I'm helping out with, and it's just so much fun for me. Just being able to help others connect with each other and grow in their personal and professional lives. I live out in West Texas, and I don't even remember what the questions were that you asked.
You covered them all.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Much, and I'm going to stop sharing my slides, and then so we'll just go ahead and get into the meat of the schedule. So Jen will be the moderator, so she'll just go ahead and read the topics that we're going to cover, and then one of our speakers will speak on them to hopefully give you guys some like concrete information and really help everyone out there understand what it takes to be a consultant and kind of how it looks on the day-to-day. So I will mute myself and give it over to Jen.
Thanks, Joanna, and hello, everybody. Just to go back to us being in Berlin and launching this revival, you now know 2 people who live in Berlin. So if you want to come visit us, we're here. The summer is amazing in Berlin, whole other vibe than the winter. So please come and say hi. So yes, let's get into this. We have so many things to cover. So for instance, well, I've seen a lot of talk around consulting on the CMX Slack, on the other community club Slack, on LinkedIn, everywhere, everybody's posting about stuff. And even people after 1 year of simply being a community manager decide to do it all on their own. And so I've been in the community for about like 5 years now. And I've toyed around with the idea, should I do consulting? Do I have the tools that I need? Can I even do this? So how and when did you decide if consulting was right for you and whether you had the right experience to even take this on? Katie, you start, since you've been in this for a few months now. You're the freshman.
Yeah. I think the how and when is really a lot like everything I've done in my career. Is I feel like this could be a really good idea. So let's just try it and see what happens. May not be the best approach for everyone, so I wouldn't always recommend that. But I honestly, I needed to make more money. I have a bunch of student loans to pay off, and I really love community. I love what I do. And I knew that there was a need out there for people who are passionate, who are willing to learn, who are immersing themselves in the community industry. And I was like, by golly, that's me, I think. And there were some opportunities out there, and it was really fun. And honestly, I will say, and I will give credit to when I started this, I was over at Sales Hacker, and I was very fortunate to be a part of that community where I was connected to a lot of companies that wanted to talk more about community and wanted to kind of shift to a community-led growth strategy. So I was able to take my experiences at Sales Hacker to those communities and companies. And so that was a really, really cool shift for me. It was incredibly nervous. And I know I had lots of conversations with Ilker of like, can I do this? I don't know if I'm good enough for this. I don't know. And he was like, oh, you're fine. You've got this. And so I was very thankful for that, because since then I'm on my third or fourth company that I'm working with, which has been really cool. So it was just a big shift. And honestly, a lot of it too goes to, I love to learn. I love learning everything about it. I love seeing how different strategies work at different companies, but then also being able to take all that information to my next company and say, here's everything that I've been able to ingest and what I've been able to take away from this. And they love that. They love seeing, oh, you've already tried this, so now you know what not to try. So that was super helpful for me. But yeah, it was a very funny start, but just like many of us, we needed to make money. So
yeah, I connect with you on that, because I love your honesty. You need more money. It's true. Some of us can't just survive on just one salary. And second, community managers, one of the skills that you need to have is to constantly be a learner. You always need to learn. And then the imposter syndrome, everybody has it. Can we really do this? Maybe I have the imposter syndrome, and that's why I'm not taking that leap of faith. But we all gotta just trust in ourselves and our surroundings and the people around us that want to see us succeed. So good on you, Ilker, for being that support system for Katie. And yeah, good for you, Katie. Let's see. Yuri, what do you got to say about this?
It's very simple, because I also needed money, let's say, but it was a little not a bit of another story, because I was growing communities in the Ukraine, but then the war started, and I suddenly had every community to stop. So I just reached out to David Spinks and asked him whether he can propose me some community-related jobs so that I can have any money to support my family, to support my country, to our army, and so on. And he made a post, and there were few people who answered like, yes, we're ready to hire you, even though they didn't know me, but they believed me. Thank you very much for this. And they already had community managers on their team, so I was like a consultant. And okay, so I'm a consultant. And also the word community is not very common in Ukraine. We still don't know much about it. And thanks to CMX Community Club, and I guess this are the main communities for community experts. And thanks to them, I learned a lot who most people in Ukraine do not know. what most people in Ukraine do not know. So even though I started to call myself community manager near 1 or 2 years ago, I have already 7 years of experience, and I made all the mistakes that community manager only can think about. And it's really very interesting, and it's really very, I would say, easy for me to look from side on other communities, because when you're working on one community, you may lose some, you may have blind spots, and you may not see some usual stuff, some simple stuff, something that your members asking for, but that's where consultants need. I'm sorry for my English, because I'm trying to translate words in my mind. But anyway, that's how I started. So currently, after having done these 2 contracts, I understood that, hell yeah, I have knowledge. Let's rock. So that's how it works for me.
That's great. And you're like the perfect example of how the power of community can mobilize and help out. So
Totally.
That's amazing. You have to use your network, people. Reach out, be shameless. It doesn't matter. Even if you don't know these people, you're never going to see them again anyway. Or you're never going to meet them. It doesn't matter. That's what I did. I was hustling for my job. All right. Thank you, Yuri, for that. All right. So we all know we have what it takes. We have our network. We have our people around us. We have our tools. But how do we know where our skills can be applied? We know that not all communities are the same. So do I stay in the industry I'm familiar with? Should I try doing a Web3 community because that's what's up and coming? How do I find my consultancy niche and establish myself as the go-to person for that field? Maybe Ilker, you can shed some light on that.
Oh, definitely. First of all, thank you for the lovely words, Katie. And of course, I was just the catalyst. Of course, it was just about just removing some of the barriers in the front, and then basically the results speaks for themselves. And that's pretty much for anyone I spoke to, and then encouraged to. So basically, the question to ask always when you want to become a consultant is that if it is the right thing for you, and as you correctly pointed out, what should be the niche, what should be the field I should be concentrating on. So I regard consultancy as an analysis process, an analysis job, in the sense that you're trying to figure out things that your client actually says, but also from the things that they don't say. So it's all about trying to figure out what exactly is the story in relation to the community that they would like to build, or they would like to, to start and to utilize towards their goals. So as a community consultant, let's say a candidate, it's important to sort of look inwards and then basically try and see if you can play to your strengths on this one. So hear me out on this way. Each one of us is strong on certain things. I mean, for example, I'm really not a big fan of, for example, maths and that sort of scientific objects, but subjects. But I'm really happy to talk about different things, about social skills, about social sciences, and so forth. So perhaps that's a good point, your background and your affinity with certain subjects. So for example, if you really like managing projects and programs, you're going to be a great community program manager, for example, trying to gauge the journey, trying to evaluate the journey of a program, and then basically just tracking some KPIs and making sure that you're reporting this journey, this journey's certain aspects to the management in that context. On the other hand, you could be really good and really happy to discuss and talk about operations, for example. Then there's an operations niche that you can actually work on. If you like sales and targets, just like Katie did, Katie built one of the biggest sales communities in the world. If you like that sort of, for example, target achieving, then growth could be an interesting part for you. And of course, if you like people strategy, if you like to oversee things, if you would like to try and see the forest instead of the trees, and then try and see if you can make sense of the relationships of the components of a company, of the place of a community inside a company, then perhaps some strategy work is good for you. And of course, just marry that with your background information, with your background that you've actually gained to that point, such as if you've been in sports, if you've been an athlete, if you've been into business, into FMCG. And think of the fields that you've been in, and certainly the experience there can always be utilized towards a consultancy role. It actually adds you believability, it adds you confidence, and it certainly adds you a certain vision that you can actually utilize towards figuring out what the community will be like when it's all built. These are all important qualities for a consultant, because those are the things that will make the client just go, okay, I'm going to be working with that person.
Okay, thank you for that. So what we need to do is we need to play with our strengths. If you're good at something, whether it be people, if you have an affinity with a certain subject, if you're in operations and you know how to do sales or people growth or all of that, make sure that you do it within that realm. And then you want to combine that with your past experience that you've had with your previous jobs to make the perfect combo of a consultant. Thanks, Ilker. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to something called branding. Some of us cave at the thought of promoting ourselves. Not all of us are extroverts. People would rather not even build their own websites for fear of looking like a sellout. So how would you make yourself available? How would you let people know that you are in the business for consulting gigs naturally, without fearing looking annoying? And this is a question for all of you, but maybe I'm going to let Deb start out on this one.
Sure. I wanted to just revisit two things, as you were saying about niche or niche, however you say it. What I learned was from my experience in life. I was a journalist and a reporter. I went to school for journalism. I worked in that industry for 15 years, didn't make any money and had a lot of bills and debt. So I went into sales. And while I got out of debt, I hated what I was doing I wasn't really excited or lit up to go to a sales job. So that transitioned into me leaving my corporate job. And the reason I left my corporate job in 2019 in December was because I met an online community of people who helped give me the tools and resources to do that. I saw the power in community. And when I launched my own community in 2020, I wanted to do it around helping people find calm. And the niche right there is I really wanted to provide resources and approach business and life in a different way and creating my own lifestyle design. And so that started my consulting business. That's why I've been working my butt off for the last 2 years to make it continue to work and to grow. And so transferable skills now have helped me with my business as far as my reporting, my interviewing skills. I've been hired for discovery interviews because I ask really great questions. From my history of doing that, I write good copy, and I can have a really great conversation because I'm familiar with talking to people. So those are some ways to use my past strengths. But to answer what you're talking about, I think it really comes down to building authentic relationships. And that's what we do as community professionals every day, is we talk to people authentically. We answer. I basically was provided customer support inside the Mighty community for them to build authority as I was building my startup. And then people just started to ask me, hey, would you jump on a call? I gave my time to people. I didn't ask for money in the beginning. I just kind of learned of what people needed and then figured out how I could pivot to say, this is how I can help you in this specific arena, or if it was a good fit or not for the client. So I think those are ways to just giving value and sharing in a way that is meaningful and authentic versus we all want to make money, but it's really about what I get excited about is how to work with people that I love what they're doing. I get to work with people who have amazing vision and a purpose and communities that are changing lives of people all around the globe. So I feel like that's the passion of why I love doing community. And the other thing that I learned as a community manager is operationally you implement the things, but as a community leader, you're the visionary setting the intention and the vision for the next 5 years or something like that. And it's a different directive. And so what I learned as a community manager was that I didn't really want to be a community manager working hourly. I wanted to be somebody who could see a vision, help people strategically, and give them the structure and help them align that vision and then build it and then see that amazingness and have a conversation in an hour with people that say, I've been stuck on something for 6 months and you just helped me break through all of that in the last 30 minutes. That is the magic of consulting.
Superwoman, Deb. Amazing. Thanks, Deb.
Love it.
So authentic relationships and giving value. Let's remember that. Yuri, what about you?
The hardest part that you need to sell without selling. So as for me, the best places for showing your availability are LinkedIn and Twitter. You can just fill your profile correctly and reveal your presence there. So, and to fill your profile, you have to go just through 20, 30 community manager positions, look at what people are searching for, and rewrite those statements in your words. And choose only those skills and abilities that you have. Some people prefer, fake it till you make it, but I don't like it because I may get lost with fake regalias while negotiating the contract, and wouldn't be very good. So I tell only what I know. So, and if I don't know something, I'll say, okay, I don't have experience in it, but I have friends to ask. I have Google, and I can manage it if you give me a try. So it is the hardest part. And the second part, a second hard part, is creating a content, because you have to share your experience so that everyone can build the community by themselves or save their time by hiring an experienced consultant instead. And finally, my favorite part is just being myself and communicating with people on LinkedIn and Twitter. So I have for these 2 daily tasks, 10 minutes for LinkedIn and 10 minutes for Twitter, to go through them, read what people say, understand them, and have a meaningful conversation. And I'm not trying to answer everyone. Otherwise, I get lost in social media. And it is much better to pay full attention to a few good people a day and to get to know each other closer step by step. So that's how it works for me. And when I fully present with those people, they are fully present with me, and we can exchange our network, we can exchange our gigs and so on. So that's how it works. Just be human.
Thanks, Yuri. Ilker, do you have a say?
Yeah, definitely. So, some of the things that Yuri said quite, resonated with my experience. I'm just going to drop something on the chat, which is a very interesting Latin saying by Cato. I think that's how it's spelled, and it's ben as a verbo sequenter, means that if you know something very well, the words actually fall out of your mouth automatically. That is pretty much what probably Yuri's trying to say, in the sense that you're not actually trying to sell something, but you're trying to actually expose your energy and perhaps sell your energy and your enthusiasm about community, and that value will be automatically created for the client. So this could be something that could be employed by the would-be consultants. So certainly the passion for the subject. And certainly, in terms of the personal branding, having a very, very strong branding, such as Deb, such as Katie, such as Yuri, just doing what they do best. And of course, talking about their strengths and the value that they have delivered, and basically just putting all the detail and the possibility that this could happen for the next clients. That is the right thing to talk about in everything. And the message has to be consistent, I feel. So even in all your talks, in all the events that you partake, and of course in all the messages that you give online and offline, in person, and of course through your social media as well. So we just have a duty to maintain a 360-degree image. I'm not saying image in a bad way, as in like a social media image where it is fake, but it just has to be genuine. I mean, this is what we do, and people judge us by that. And then basically, this must be the the right thing to to tell clients, and the value that we can deliver. That means that we can also be confident in doing so.
Thanks, Ilker. Katie, would you like to wrap this one up? Any last minute thoughts?
Honestly, I think everyone did such a great job of kind of explaining what I had on my mind with it. It's really just understanding, I think understanding like your strong suit and almost playing to that whenever it comes to branding. And also, and I think this was kind of at the core of what a lot of folks had to say, is it's really about your heart. I talk about this with community folks all the time that are like, oh, well, they're asking me to connect them with these. I'm like, this is literally your job. Like, your job is to be as helpful as you possibly can to the people in your community. And so I know as we're building out the Cleary community, that's something I really focus on, is this isn't just a spot for us to promote our products. This is a spot for us to build relationships personally and professionally. And so I think whenever we look at branding, like, it's really about your heart, and it's about genuinely wanting to help people in your community and helping them be better at what they do. And in return, you're going to get better at what you do. And then, it becomes a domino effect, because then people see like you're doing this because you truly love it. And yes, the money's great. I would love not having student loans. I would love to have my house and car paid off, right? But ultimately, I'm doing it because a lot of what we do, it's the right thing to do. And I think that's where our brands really start to shine, and like people's perspective and persona of us really starts to kind of get elevated through that. So that is all I would add. Okay. I'm a softie though, so.
Thanks, Katie. All right, so we've built our authentic relationships. We've proven our value. We've shared content. We've shown our energy and how amazing we are, and just how everything falls off the tongue just because, by repetition and building all these relationships, it just comes naturally. So people will start trusting you and trusting your word. So all of that led you to finally landing a job. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so you got the job. Now you found some people who are interested in hiring you and they want to build a community with you. What's next? How do you actually land this gig and succeed at it? Katie, we're going to start in reverse now. Back to you again.
Absolutely. I remember my first my first gig, and I'm only giggling because I didn't think that they were serious. I was like, do you really want I was like, oh, sure. Like, I'll go on an interview. And they're like, well, we like what you're doing at Sales Hacker. And so like, we'd be curious if you could help us with some strategy. In my first interview, I had no clue what I was doing, but I was like, oh, sure, I can do all of this. And I'm like, what am I? Like, it was very scary. I had no idea. Since then, I have tried to make it a little more professional. And I've been working really hard at getting everything out on my first call. I want to know all the nooks and crannies of your business before I commit to something. There's been a few times where I've said, we may need to get on another conversation. I think we should flesh out some ideas because things may sound really awesome. And then they trick you, and then you're stuck in something that is not going to be awesome. And it's going to be a lot more work, and you should have charged a lot more. So just some caveats to that. But whenever you first get that message of, hey, we would love to have a conversation, it's one of the most exciting things, because many of us probably thought, oh, seriously, me? And so since the experiences I've had, I work really hard to make sure I send out my agenda before we get on the call, and make sure if there's anything else they want to add, they add to it before we even meet. My agenda usually includes, of course, intros. I want to know who I'm talking with and who I will be working with. I want to learn more about their community. Of course, do some research before you get there. I want to know about their current team. What is their actual situation looking like? Most importantly, what are their problems? Why do they even need a consultant? Is it because they don't want to hire a community manager full time? Is it they're struggling with re-engagement or churn or migration from free accounts to paid accounts? They need to make more money. What are those problems? And in those situations, my biggest encouragement is don't say anything. Ask your question and be quiet, because they'll just start rattling off everything. And if you leave a little awkward silence, they'll get deeper and deeper into it. So you can actually like really get into what's the real problem here. And then my next big question is, what do they want me to solve? So you've listed off all these problems. And usually it'll sound like a full-time job. So it's what specifically are you wanting me to solve during the 6-month contract? And I love that, because you're really getting them to set expectations that you can then measure yourself against. And it's also, I think Deb had mentioned this, like Deb and Ilker, about the different types of consulting and like the joys of being more strategy focused and being more like engagement focused. And so once I hear what they want me to solve, sometimes I have to push back and say, honestly, it sounds like you are wanting a full-time community manager. I can't do that, but I've got some folks that can, or here are some ways to promote this job. Or, okay, you just want strategy. Perfect. And sometimes you'll get, we don't really know, what would you recommend? So be prepared for that conversation of having some resources or some ideas. My first meeting, that's what they said. And I said, oh, well, let's start with a strategy. And then if you like it, we can start with like implementation of it. And we ended up going down that path, and it was awesome because they paid for my strategy. And then they paid me in a monthly fee for my implementation consulting, because they actually had a community manager, but they just needed a little extra help. And so we set up, some times and some terms. But then there's others that, like one I'm working on right now, it originally started with like more strategy focused, and now it's turning into more like it's turning into a lot more. And it's a lot more like creating documents and like very customer facing stuff. And then it's turning, I'm assuming it's going to turn, once that community launches, it'll turn into like community management, which that's going to change the price on some things, and that's something you have to be very upfront with in that call is, it looks like over the 6 months, what you're wanting to accomplish might be evolving, and like be aware that with those changes, my price may change. And I just want to make sure you're okay with that. And then once you kind of go through that process and you talk about goals and measurements of success. And so you need to make sure that you're comfortable with what they're setting up. And if you're not, it's a great time to push back. A lot of times they don't really know. So they're throwing things out just like you are. So like, just be comfortable with that conversation. Because for me, the most difficult conversation is about pay. And that's usually what I wrap the call up with. I have gotten some quotes from consultants for my own job for things that like, maybe I just need a little extra help, or I'm not sure. And I just want to bounce some ideas off. And after that, I learned I am significantly undercharging. So what everyone told me whenever I first started was, whenever you talk about pay, put your number out that you think, and then like double that. And I was like, that's stupid. No one's going to pay that. And so now that I know that that's actually on the low end of things and I'm getting paid less, I'm like, oh, well, maybe I should have done that. So that's kind of how I go through like the discovery call, really understanding and getting on the same page with everyone. And then of course, next steps. So
yeah, that's a really good segue into the pay things, because pay negotiation, how do you decide your rate, especially across cities and countries? So we have, Katie, you're on the East Coast?
West I am West in Texas, central US. I'm out in Lubbock.
Deb is in the States, but I don't know where. And then we have
I'm in Pennsylvania, so East Coast.
Okay, so then we have East Coast, and we have Ilker in Turkey, Yuri in Ukraine, and Joanna and I were in Berlin. So I don't know, Ilker, how do you come up with pay and how, what you paid your worth?
Well, I think there's a few dimensions. First of all, it's sometimes it could be a sore subject, but it needs to be spoken. It needs to be explored at length. Just like Katie was saying, you really don't want to be underpaid. You really don't want to, also miss a client because you've quoted too high. So it's a bit of an art in itself, and unfortunately, the only way to figure it out correctly is through experience. So you need to put out so many quotes. You need to get into these negotiations. There's no non-painful way of learning this craft, really. So if you're a consultant, this is something that you've got to see as part of your job, and it shouldn't be something that you really, are trying to avoid or trying to assume that, things are going to work out the way that, you would like them to. But what is important is to, well, first of all, sky's the limit, and every consultant approaches it in a different way. So it's important to tie it up to a certain structure or to a certain scale. And that scale could be impact or it could be scope. So I think those two dimensions are the ones that I usually, look at in the first place. So it's important to try and nail down the scope. And especially in my part of the world, it's the Mediterranean. So we have our blood is boiling in the sense that we would like to, just do things immediately, start fast and break things and figure things out later. But it doesn't work like that quite that much in the consulting world. So it's important to try and see if you can actually just nail down the scope. So as an project management trainer, I always regard scope as the start point of things, because it actually tells you how much effort you're going to be expanding, how much time it will take, and of course what sort of resources you're going to deploy, whether it's going to be subcontractors or employees, just like Deb did recently. So hired new people to help with the project. So but it's important for you to understand the scope at depth before you can actually tell something about it. So what is important, what should be avoided, is to give a standard rate or a standard package, let's say, quote to clients, saying that this is what it's going to take to build your community. It's going to take X amount of weeks and X amount of work, but not really. It's important to nail down the scope. It also helps you identify any possible changes in the future as well. I know this is not really answering the question of pay, but the magnitude of the project, the magnitude of the task in front of you will actually tell you, what you should be charging in one way. Because then you can start to gauge the impact of it as well. I worked in countries, I worked in the UK, in Switzerland, in Turkey, of course, and also worked for clients in the States. So every project needs to be regarded separately because the impact is different. Well, the budgets are different. So inevitably, the question will come to budget. You will quote something. Just like Katie said, I second that. That is a leaf out of Brian Oblinger's book. If you think you're quoting high, just double it and quote some more even. But basically, you just take that, and then you can try and see if you can fit it into the budget of the client, which sometimes they just reveal down the line. So if that is the case, then if you know the scope, you're able to play. You're able to reduce the scope. You're able to change it. You're able to put it into stages where you can just say, look, I am not going to be changing my hourly rate or weekly rate or whatever it is, but I can give you a smaller scope output, and I can give you like a shorter time scale of a support. If you don't know the scope, if you don't know what you're actually working on, if what you're going to be tackling with, then you will not be able to do these negotiations. So this is what I can say. And of course, you really need to be mindful of the structure of the client, how they approach projects. Just ask these questions. Tell them how they work with contractors. See if you can see some sample statements of work. And sometimes you will be surprised about some restrictions or some freedoms that you may be able to enjoy. So it's important to try and see if you can prepare yourself, if you can do some groundwork before it comes to pay. Because sometimes also that it's not only the money that you're paid on the spot for that particular project, but it's the continuity of the job. And of course, the prospect of new interesting projects could come into play. The only way to find out if those opportunities exist is for you to be engaging with the client and to give them that you're trying to provide them with the best value possible, and hopefully in the long term as well. As consultants, we all love return business, don't we?
Yes, and I just want to be mindful on time here, so I'm just going to wrap up this with the last question regarding pay. When you consult, you typically aren't obviously executing the work. So what are the boundaries of where your work starts? Is it when you just have the first call, and when does it end? What are the demarcations? Like, okay, I'm going to try. Yeah. Katie, let's go with you.
So I've always wondered if I could get away with charging for my kickoff call, because I'm just curious, because sometimes they take a really long time. However, I think best practice is starting once that contract is signed. So I guess I should use terminology. I've always wondered if I could get away with charging for my discovery call, but then usually once that contract's signed, then I'll send like a next steps with like a date for a kickoff call and then start from there. So that's when I do it. Or depending on the project, like my first one, whenever it was just a strategy doc, I just billed them for the hours for creating that and doing the research for it. And then whenever they wanted me to help with the actual implementation of it, then I was like, okay, well, that's going to be this, like we discussed. And so that's going to start on that first kickoff call after that. So.
Okay. All right. And then what resources are you all using to stay organized? Are there certain tools or frameworks you can use to kind of keep track of everything? Maybe Deb, you can answer that one.
Yeah, so I have a standard operating procedures that I've created at the beginning of the year that's really helped me align with exactly what tasks need to be done when and who's doing them. Since I brought on my virtual assistant and podcast producer at the beginning of 2022, I just hired a content writer who is now added to my workflow. But basically, Google Docs I primarily use for client communication, Google Drive, and Google Sheets and those kinds of things. But for contact management, like as far as client work goes, I use Bonsai because that helps me not only send invoices, but also helps me build up accounts basically for each individual client, because I work with the entrepreneurs. So I have a lot of people that I work with typically in a month or a couple months. So to manage the project, if I'm doing multiple projects, it seemed really complicated. So now I take notes after every call, give a follow-up email of like, here's the next session and here's what we're doing next time. So being really clear about every stage of the project is really important. The timeframes on when things, the due dates or timeframes on when things are expected, to get clarity on that is really important. And then putting that all down in a Google Doc or whatever you use to like connect with people. That seems to work the best for me. I also use Trello for my team. And then we just, when we have a card and then it's moved from the podcast, it's moved from one Trello area to another, then, Khaleesa will go, hey, Christina, I just finished editing. Here's the show notes for you to copy edit. So that's what the workflow we've just worked out. And it works really well. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, project management tools are amazing. I know I use Monday.com, but that's for my own work. I'm not doing consulting yet, but maybe I will after all. And that's a pretty cool one. Trello is pretty awesome too. So, okay. So now we've got our first gig was successful, but how now do we get our next gig after this first one? What can we do? Yuri, take it away.
So I propose from the just signing of the first contract or the second or whatever, immediately start searching for other possibilities on job boards, communities, because those people believed you, and it means that more people will believe you too. So just keep looking. And I searched for them on CMX, Community Club, Guild, and Roseland. And it's a long process, so just make it one of the daily tasks. And parallel to it, help people within the communities by answering their questions. That's what I do. And of that help, you'll have a good side effect. People will get used to you, and when they will need a consultant or hear that somebody needs, they'll tag you. And after finishing a gig, just create a concrete list of what you have done in the community and what results you achieved. Ask for feedback from the team. Add this list with the feedback to your deck and LinkedIn profile, because if somebody needs cases, here they are. And it will help other geeks to find you. So not you looking for gigs, but gigs will look for you. And never stop those processes. Otherwise, you may have a project gap. Because even better to negotiate about more projects than you can do, because not all your negotiations will lead to a contract. And if they will, you can share tasks with your consultant friends or ask for a bigger payment if you have too much.
Okay, that's awesome. You mentioned looking for right after signing, and then you just listed a few areas. Could you share those again? You said them pretty quickly.
Once again, so after signing, I'm starting to look on CMX and Community Club, Guild, and Roseland. That's our communities where I'm, let's say, an active member.
Yeah, because I mean, there's also other pages like Upwork, I guess, or I guess Fever or Fiverr. I don't know how you pronounce it.
Yes, but I'm not using them. So yeah. I'm only searching for the work within the communities of communities experts. So it's just, yeah.
And there's another way also you can build your network and kind of leverage stuff that you're already really good at, like Deb, for example, with Mighty Networks. She's been using it, and now she's kind of like the Salesforce person, but for Mighty Networks. Deb, maybe you want to using that your platform expertise to even go further with your experience in being a consultant and getting that trust.
Yeah, so I have a podcast called the Community Strategy Podcast, and basically that's how I have the know, like, and trust factor with a lot of people as I build clients, and people share that. So that's really helpful. I just started really using LinkedIn to connect with people and offer content on my blog and things like that to get the word out about what I'm doing and build authority for myself. Bringing on experts is the other thing that I do. My connection, it says my connection is unstable, so I'm sorry if I'm like flipping, but anyway, I would say those things. LinkedIn has been helpful, but Mighty Networks, just knowing something a little bit ahead of what other people, or if you've already done something and then you can just share, oh, here's what I've learned. That's a big deal. It's a big deal. And people can really benefit from what you know, because sometimes I think, oh, they should know. They probably know. No, they don't know that. And if you tell them and they're like, oh my gosh, Deb, you blew my mind. And it's just crazy. The littlest things. I'm just so surprised. But it's like, we have, it's 2022. There's a lot happening. A lot's going on. It's hard to like keep focused any moment of the day at anything we're doing half the time. So I feel like any way that you can make it easy for somebody, they're going to see you, and then they're going to be interested in talking to you. And I've just offered, because of my background in visual arts and writing, those backgrounds have just helped me elevate my copy and the content that I create. So, and then bringing people on as speakers, hosting events where we can highlight others. I have the Community Consultants Collective, which Ilker is a part of, and I always want to bring consultants together to support each other. And so we just have a honest conversation every month in our online community about how to keep promoting each other in the community industry.
Yeah, this one's monthly, right? You have like a lot of community consultants, and they share. You kind of have like a hot seat.
Yeah, I was on the hot seat this month and got some feedback about something that I've definitely changed directions from what I promoted the other week. But, basically it's a free, safe space, right? So if you're struggling, I started because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like Katie was kind of saying, like, I don't, like where to even begin, or how do I know what I can do or charge? And so that's what we talk about. It's just honest conversations, and based on my experience working with people, I share that. And then everybody kind of gives from their amazing experience being in the community profession, just sharing those resources and connections and referrals is a big deal. And I had Todd, who's in our group. Todd was on a call with me for a possible larger client, because I brought him into it because I didn't have experience working with a large client like that. And so he said, "Oh, I'm sure to help you." And he gave me more authority because he could speak to the subject matter of the client where I couldn't. So I think that there's also ways to like connect together as partners and offer and really elevate what we're doing.
Yeah, I feel like for me, what's really standing out right now is just use your network. Like we're community managers, so it's like in us. We just have to connect and form our own little community to help each other out. So thank you everybody for all these amazing answers and insights. I think it's we're 2 minutes almost to the time, but if Joanna, if we have some questions or any comments that some of the attendees would like to ask with our speakers, I'll give the mic over to you.
We don't have any questions yet. So if anyone has any, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. But I think I wrote a question in for you, Deb, and I think maybe you just answered it. So would you mind actually just saying it out loud, just because we have a couple of minutes?
Yeah, so if you go to findcalmhere.com on the blog and you type in the search community consultants, I did put a blog post together that kind of explains the call, what we do. But I typically like to talk to people one-to-one to see if they're the right fit. I had some people that were joining a couple months back that were just really not in the same space. They were thinking we're doing other kinds of consulting, and it's a very different, community consulting is its own unique thing. And so, so you could book a call with me, and certainly we can chat to see if it's the right fit and if it's going to be beneficial for you, for your time. Or you could just shoot me an email and my email's there, deb@findcalmhere.com.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. This is another question that I just have on my own, and I think it would be probably relevant to a lot of people. So I think Katie, you might be the only one who has like a full-time job and consulting, but the rest of you also are probably doing multiple projects at once. I am wondering, I know that like there's of course organization tools you can use, but like, have you guys reached a point where you have maybe too much going on and you're scattered too thin, or like, how do you kind of figure out like what your cadence or your pace is for how many clients that you can have at once and still do a good job and still kind of like, I don't know, have like a good mental health situation? Maybe, I don't know who wants to answer that. Maybe Katie, if you wanted to jump in, or.
Yeah, I'll answer this very quickly because I know I've been on a call with a few of y'all where I was like, I was crying because I do have a full-time job. I am finishing up my MBA, and I've got 2 consulting gigs that I'm working on. So I've got a lot on my plate. I have actually found better ways this time around with my consulting that has helped me be a little bit more stress-free. And honestly, a lot of it's just really up to my organization. It's really about like time blocking my day. I try really, really hard to do most of my meetings on a few certain days, and so that the other days are actual working days for myself. And I found that to be so incredibly helpful. A lot of it is also just really geared towards being very transparent with who I'm working with on like how much I can actually take on. And what I found is people really appreciate that. They want to know the truth, and they want to know like how comfortable you are with certain things. And if it is a really good fit, then they'll be really respectful of that and like very understanding. And so far, like even when I've had to go to an offsite, or if I've got PTO for my normal job, and I just communicate that with the folks I'm consulting with, and they're like, oh yeah, absolutely. Like, we understand that. And so that they've been like really awesome with that. It's tough.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, and Deb's adding some. Do you want to just jump in on that?
I
too?
was just resonating but just saying, like, I'm full-time consulting, so I definitely need to see where, like, how to get the revenue in. And there was really busy periods, and then there was like a sudden drop in February, and I'm like, where'd everybody go? But what I'm realizing is there's an ebb and flow to consulting for sure. Ways to diversify revenue are the biggest ways that you can support yourself as a consultant. So I have my podcast. I'm working on monetizing that. I'm working on monetizing my Find Calm Here community. I offer other products. I'm doing affiliate links. So there's other ways to get revenue. But what I really realized in the last couple of months, since I'm really focused on strengths and what I do really well, as I'm going through strengths finders and getting a certification. I'm currently getting a certification to become a UMAP coach, which is a program to help people identify what their strengths are, aligning that with their values, and then finding them really great or entrepreneurs that want to really connect with their ideal client much better and have a freer lifestyle design. Because I love Canva and I love writing content. I could spend hours on that, but that does not bring me clients today. So I've learned, and my coach reminded me, Deb, you can create all the programs, but what you really need to do is work on that leads list, make some calls, send some emails, and really focus on how to get people in the pipeline of your business. And so that's when I really realized the power of hiring other people. I hired a marketing expert this year. I hired a copywriter recently, because even though I'm a copywriter myself, I just can't spend all the hours writing copy when I need to be on these discovery calls. And now that I've opened myself up to that, I'm networking more. I'm feeling better. I'm like less stressed because I know things are getting done and I'm not having to do them. So I feel like asking for help is the biggest learning lesson I've learned in the last 2 years, of just being willing to say, hey, I need help. It's a game changer. And that's what helps you transition from like trying to do all the things as an entrepreneur to being able to like just do what is in your really good zone of genius, as they say, and then getting your other people on board to collaborate with you, whether it's volunteers that help you or whether it's partnerships that you trade services in the beginning. I did a lot of trading of services in the beginning. But yeah, just bringing people together. That's community. Why would we do it alone? This is the thing. I was like, why do I do this? Why was I trying to do this all alone? I was building an online community and trying to launch a consulting business, and I was doing it all on my own. And it seemed really silly and like just common sense of I should start a consulting collective, because why are we doing it alone? Right. So funny.
That's great. I love how you're finding solutions to all of your own problems by probably the things that you do when you work with clients. So that's great. That Well, thank you so much. That was really awesome to hear. I also love that you have you mentioned you have a business coach. Very cool too. Like filing that away in my mind, because it is really helpful to have people around who can give you advice and resources.
And she's a collaborator. Honestly, my business coach was somebody I did a discovery call with, and she's like, I don't know that I need you right this moment, but I know I'm going to need you, but I really want to help you. And so we ended up working and collaborating together for the last 9 months, and it's been an amazing experience. So you never know what you don't know until you ask the questions and you have conversations with people. So
yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And Yuri, do you have, I think we can, kind of wrap it up, but I wanted to see like if you have anything else you would like to add either on this topic or anything else in general.
I'm just listening, I'm not that good professional as Katie and Deb, so I'm just learning.
We're all just learning, and you're just as great as all of us, because we all are humans in this journey called life. So
yes, find your network. We are your network. We will lift you up.
Thank you. I'm feeling very awkward, but thank you very much.
All right.
Cool. Well, I think, on that note, thank you guys so much for speaking, and everyone all the attendees. Yeah, super excited to get this chapter going. And also, Jen, you did awesome moderation. Do you want to say anything else? Any closing words?
I just love what I do as well. I'm so glad I found my tribe and all these people that everybody can do it, and we're all here for you. We're all here for each other, and yeah.
Cool.
Yay! And congratulations on restarting a chapter, Berlin chapter. Yay!
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you guys. And yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. And yeah, we'll have the recording up. I think it goes automatically to YouTube. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And yeah, have a good afternoon, evening, maybe morning. I don't think it's in the morning for anyone. Enjoy your day. Thanks a lot.
And
All right.
high five.
Bye, everyone.